Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you, as is usual. For this one we're going to return to Iceland, and I'm going to introduce you to another new brewery there. Now, I took a 2-week trip up to Iceland with my friends, and it's an absolutely beautiful country. The people are wonderful up there, very very friendly, and they live in an absolutely beautiful place, somewhere you really need to go and visit before you die. But for this review we're going to visit Gæðingur, who are a very very good little craft brewery, quite small, and we're going to have a taste of their Tumi Humall IPA. And this is a beautiful beer. I drank this quite a lot on tap in Reykjavik, and it was absolutely beautiful on tap, so I'm really interested to see how the sort of bottled conditioned version compares to that. But as is usual then with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a very brief history of the brewery. It is very short, but if you don't want to stick with me for it, just fast forward a few minutes and you'll get straight to the tasting. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with the link to my other Gæðingur beer reviews that I will add in the coming days. So anyway, Gæðingur is a brewery from Skagafjordur in Iceland, which was formed with the intention of increasing the prominence of craft beer in Iceland, and like many other places, it's only been starting to take off within the last sort of 10 years or something like that. But the name Gæðingur actually means a thoroughbred horse, and it refers also in a way to the many horses that you'll find as you drive through the countryside of Iceland. But you really need to watch out for the sheep. You can destroy a car quite easily if you crash into one of the things they have up there. But the brewery is owned by Arnie, who is apparently a farmer and a speech therapist, and he is helped out by Birgit, who is a partner in the brewery and also a seamstress, and there is also Yoi, who helps out in the brewery as well. But the brewery is actually a very very small operation. It's run only with a small 6-barrel brewery of British origin, and the company also own a bar in Reykjavik called Microbar, which was where I tried a lot of these beers on tap. They always have Gæðingur on tap, and you can get various Brewdog beers in there and quite a few American craft beers. If you go into if you're on the main street in Reykjavik, Landmannavegur, it's just down the bottom of this. You go into a sort of square where I think it's the townhouse, and Microbar is just in that square. But it's a really really nice little bar where they have all these really cool Icelandic craft beers, and I recommend you go and check it out. And the guy who brews the Gæðingur beer owns this brewery as well, which is very very cool. So that's your kind of brief history of the Gæðingur Öl brewery, and I'll just list the other beers that you can get from these guys. There's 4 or 5 main types of beer. So you get the lager beer, which has a kind of similar style of label to this, but it's white. You get the pale ale, which is the green labelled one. I will be reviewing that for you in the near future. There is the stout, which is the black label one. The wheat beer, which is yellow. I'll review that one for you as well. And then there's this guy, the Tumi Humall, which is the purple label one. And they also have a special Christmas beer as well, which is a sort of blue and red label one. I'm not sure exactly what that is, if it's a barley wine or a bock beer or something like that, but it's meant to be very very nice, so hopefully I can get one of those for you at some stage. So we'll get on with the tasting of this beer then. This one is a 6.5% IPA, and apparently the beer is based on the American Pale Ale style. So I'll bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork quickly. As I said, Gæðingur is the word that refers to a kind of thoroughbred horse in Icelandic. You can see on there each of the different beers have a slightly different cartoon in them. I think the Pale Ale has the same one as this, but the stout, if you look at the stout and the wheat beer and the lager, they all have a different kind of cartoon with the little horse in there. But they're very nice actually. I think I'm going to keep this bottle because this was a beer that was really really awesome to drink when I was in Iceland. But very nicely presented. You can just see on the side there some of the Icelandic, and Icelandic is a really kind of crazy language to listen to, but if you do try and pronounce a word, it actually does look like you would think in English. If you kind of have an idea of how it sounds a little bit, you can pronounce it quite easily. But I was told not to speak to the Icelandics in Icelandic because they wouldn't understand, but they're actually very good like that. But it's Danish you need to watch out for with that. Their language is crazy. But let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting then. Plain bottle cap on this one, by the way, just purple. Each of them obviously have a different coloured bottle cap that goes with the label of the beer. But we'll get this guy out and we'll get it tasted. So I think I'm going to go back to Iceland one time at Christmas and see the Northern Lights, because when I was there it was just, you know, it was complete daylight. You got absolutely nothing in the way of darkness there, which was very unusual. We spent 2 weeks up there and we never saw darkness or proper darkness once, which was very unusual. So I need to go back to Iceland in the winter to get a proper look at the Northern Lights. So I'll just bring up the camera again and let you have a little look at the colour of this beer. It's poured a very kind of nice, bright, orangey amber colour, this one. Maybe a more yellowish amber, actually. It looks very, very nice. You had just about a half finger of a very kind of frothy white head on this one. There's a good bit of carbonation just going up towards the bottom of the head on this one here, and it looks really nice and it smells very fresh. I've not even paid too much attention to the aroma, and I can already kind of detect just a little bit of the kind of juicy fruit that's coming out of this one. So let's give it a shuggle and we'll see how we get on here. It smells very, very similar to how it did on tap. Usually on the tap you get a little bit more of the malt character coming out, and the hops kind of seem a little bit less prominent, but it does smell very, very close to how it did on tap. But yeah, a lot of nice kind of citrusy and grapefruit flavours coming out in this one. It's got quite a citrusy orange character to it, and the grapefruit is just in the background, and maybe a little bit of kind of apricot as well. It reminds me of the little yogurts my mum used to give me when I was young, with that kind of apricot smell. It does have some of that in the background, but that blends a little bit more with the malt base of the beer. So you're getting, if you sugar the beer up, you can pick up the sort of bready and caramel elements in the malt base. Not a very sweet bread, this one. It actually has it almost smells a little bit like rye bread, but it's not a very sweet bread on this one. And there is a good bit of caramel there, but the most prominent component of the aroma of this beer is definitely the hops. Very, very attractive smelling beer. A lot of nice citrusy, orangey aromas in there. And then you've got just a little bit of grapefruit and a kind of underlying apricot character to this one. Smells absolutely beautiful. So without further ado, let's get this guy tasted. Very, very similar to how it tastes on tap in Iceland. It has the same distinctive kind of grapefruit bitter blast as you take it in as the tap version did. And that's the mark of a good beer. If they can make it as good in the bottle as they can on tap, that's the sign of a good beer and also a good brewer as well. So yeah, you're getting this really nice grapefruit blast, and just that grapefruit kind of flavours kind of subside. It kind of invades the very front of the tongue actually, and sits there, and it starts to move back towards the back of the tongue. You're getting just that kind of nice bready malt base coming out, and there's a little bit of the caramel malt sweetness just kind of sitting in there, but it's very, very faint actually. The most prominent part of the flavour in this beer is definitely the sort of grapefruity and a little bit of the apricot kind of mixing in underneath there. The citrus is playing an important role, but that's the interesting point about this beer. That really nice orangey citrus character that you can pick out in the aroma, it's not coming out so much in the flavour. But yeah, very fruity, huge grapefruit in this one. Has that really, really nice kind of sort of bittery and sour character to it in there. The apricot, as I say, blends in just a little bit, but the oranges have been the kind of sweet orange aroma you can pick up. The taste of that is pushed right back by these grapefruits. It might be mixed in, but I would say the grapefruit is the dominant fruit within this IPA. It's a beautiful beer, this one. Very, very bitter. It reminds me a little bit of the Beavertown beer I did from London. That was one of the most bitter IPAs I ever tried. And there was also Silures from the Celt Experience. And this one is definitely up there with those. A very, very bitter beer. The orangey flavour, actually, now that I've taken a few sips of this beer, the orangey flavour is coming out a little bit later on. It kind of builds a little bit in towards the middle of the front of the tongue. So very, very interesting in that regard actually. I do wonder if there's a little bit of a peach element within this really big sort of grapefruity flavour. I think there's a good mix there of kind of apricot, peach and grapefruit, but grapefruit is very, very prominent and gives it that really nice bitter blast. But it subsides to a kind of so it's got a nice kind of orangey and aromatic character to it as well. The orangey flavour builds right in the middle of the front of the tongue, just as you kind of progress through this beer, and there's a nice kind of aromatic-y character to it that is spreading just through the very edges, and it makes it very, very fresh actually, and it complements that grapefruit character very, very well. Yeah, and you have got an underlying sort of bready character to this one. The caramel malt is very subdued, but it's just because of the huge hop presence and hop fruity flavours that this beer's putting forward. Massive grapefruit with you know, a little bit of peaches, I think, and some apricot. Really interesting fruit one of this. So if you like a really fruity and bitter beer, this is definitely one you want to give a try of. But the malt base in it, it could perhaps just be a tiny, it could perhaps just have a tiny little bit more of the caramel coming out, a little bit more sweetness. But if you like a really, really bitter beer, it's definitely like that, and I really like this one. That is one comment I would make. The caramel, I think, does come out just a little bit more in the tap version. You just get that nice little caramel sweetness going down the middle of the tongue. But I mean, it has all the elements there, but it's a hugely bitter beer. But if you like that, definitely give it a try. In terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I'd definitely say mid-bodied. It's got quite a kind of light, maybe moderate carbonation on it, but it's got a good bit of oily character in the mouthfeel, and that suits it quite a lot. It kind of brings out these sort of aromatic-y. It does have a pine resin element to it, this one. That's what I've forgotten to say, even though it's there quite obviously in the flavour. There is a lot of pine resin in this one, and the kind of level of carbonation in this one just suits it down to the ground. But a lot of nice, juicy, fruity character in this one. It's an absolutely beautiful beer, this. So I mean, the Icelandics, as just to summarise, the Icelandics produce some really excellent beer. I mean, you've got Ulfsut, Gæðingur, you also have Einstuk up in Akureyri in Iceland as well. All of these breweries are producing some very, very good beer. But this one, I think, is definitely one of the best beers that you will find in Iceland. If you find yourself in Reykjavik, go to Microbar and try it on tap. It's beautiful in the bottle as well, but you just get a little bit more of the malty character coming out in that, and it balances it just slightly better on tap than it does in the bottle. But, you know, that's a minor complaint. This is an absolutely beautiful beer that you really need to try. A nice kind of dry, very juicy, fruity beer. If you're into your sort of very high bitter beers, this is definitely one for you. An absolutely stunning IPA. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. I will have more Icelandic beer reviews for you to come, including 2 from Gæðingur Öl, and you will see those appearing over the next few weeks. My next brewery that I think I'm going to visit from Iceland will be Ulfsut, so subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing more Icelandic beer reviews, and as I say, hopefully I will get back to the islands to get even more of them for you. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews. Let me know in the comment section your own thoughts on this particular beer if you do happen to have tried it. But thanks again for watching, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I'll catch you soon with my next beer review. Cheers.